Good morning, lovelies, and welcome to another vlog. Today we're actually going on a little adventure. We're going on a camp trip, not very far away, just about an hour from here, very close to my hometown. I thought I'm gonna take you along. I'm going with a friend and with a baby, and we're just gonna have a couple of nice days out in the green, out in nature. And also I wanted to show you some of my witchy things that I love to do on holidays or when traveling. So the weather is only semi-decent. It's supposed to storm today, at least in the morning. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to make a little stop at my mom's house. I'm sure there will be a fantastic breakfast waiting there for us. Then once the weather has eased up a little bit, I'm gonna pick up my friend from the train station, and then we're going and see where we can camp for the night. But I also wanted to show you guys something that I usually do before I travel, because a witch never travels without some kind of protection. So what you saw me do there just now is a little spell sachet, and I like to make those for when I go traveling. So if I go by plane, I would usually put something very calming in it, like lavender or chamomile or something that might help me even sleep in a plane. And when I go by car, like now, I also like to incorporate some things that are great for motion sickness in case the baby is not feeling so awesome, and things that just keep me more alert and focused. Like I have lemon verbena in there, I have rosemary in there for some protection, I have thyme in there, and I have some chamomile in there, so I'm not getting the road rage. I have to admit that the car is the one and only place that I actually swear, so something calming is sometimes needed with all those on the roads. We have arrived at Grandma's house. Let's see what's there for breakfast. It's gonna be so yummy. Stims? Yeah.
Mom.
Is that your mommy? Mwah. That I spoke to over on Instagram or on Facebook somehow assumed that I grew up in a village and I'm very much a nature child, which I am. But I actually am a city girl at heart. I grew up here in this lovely concrete jungle. And I do really enjoy reconnecting with my roots, where I'm coming from. And I always find it extremely important, especially when you go that path, to sometimes reconnect with where you come from, and also a little bit with the land and the history behind that. And that's also a reason why we're going on this camping trip that is not super far from here. It's only half an hour drive, and that area is just very rich in history. It has like a very rich Celtic history. It's like a old city that still has a lot of the buildings from 2000 years back from when the Romans were here. And the plan is to go hiking, to explore, to find a couple of like sacred places or old historic magical places, and maybe gather a couple of things that we then later on can use in our craft. So I'm super excited for that, to take you along. All right, but now it's time that we pick up my lovely friend Jessica from the train station. Obviously.
Terrified. There are bugs in here. I am not a witch. I do not like nature. Just for your FYIs.
Yeah, so it's thunderstorming outside. It's loud. It's wet. I don't know what else to say. Hi guys! So we're now on our first little hike of many. we are already out of breath and we just barely took 10 steps up, but well, it's super hot. But we're going up to old castle ruins from the medieval ages, and that's what I like to do on my holidays. Find kind of these ancient power places. It's on top of a hill, so we should have a fantastic view. Castle, I actually did find something. I found an elder tree and it had already the berries. They're not quite yet ripe enough to harvest and use them, but I did actually take a little bit of the wood, because in magical beliefs it's said that the wood from the elder tree, if you fashion that into instruments, it is a great way to communicate with the spirits or with the fae folk. The sound that it produces lures them in. So as you know, I'm not necessarily a believer in the actual existence of such things, but I do think I can incorporate it in some way into my magic, maybe for a communication charm. I'll definitely show that in one of my next videos. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe right now. Today, the evening, I will just use for one of my favorite holiday pleasures. On a day-to-day basis, I will listen to a lot of audiobooks. I love to listen to my Audible library when I'm just like cleaning or cooking, walking the dog, but I never really sit down and read a book, and brought 3 because why not? So for my fellow kitchen witches, I have this book here, Rituals, offerings, and why we eat together. And I bought this first thinking it was some kind of kitchen witch cookbook, which it's not, but I'm not disappointed about that at all. It has all these like tales and lore and history about food and rituals and religion or spirituality. It has a lot of information about neo-paganism or witchcraft, and how to incorporate food in that, food and sex, food and grief, food and everything. I can only recommend reading this if you're either into kitchen witchery or food in general. It's really lovely. I'm gonna put the link in the description box below for you so you can go and check it out. The second book that I have is a book about wild herbs, and it has all the information about the plants, like how they look like, how to distinguish them, which dangerous lookalikes they have. There's always a little bit about traditions and lore around the plant, which I really appreciate, even though it's not a witchy book, but it's just like, you know, this folk kind of herbal. Some of them even come with a little recipe, which is amazing. So this is in German. I don't know if it has a translation. If there is one, I'll definitely also put it in the box for you. But if you're German speaking and you're interested in gathering wild herbs, check this out. I will soon call it a night because tomorrow we have wild plants. One of those really like places where you can just feel like the natural energy. So it's a perfect little space for like grounding or some meditation. So we're just like walking along the Danube, which is the biggest river here. I'll tell you a little bit about the history and the etymology of that later on. And now left and right there are a lot of like these steep caves, and we just climbed into one. It's really cool. It was a bit of a struggle with the baby on the back. It's also his nap time, but it's really amazing. Look at that. And this looks out into a forest area. So now we're going to go to a monastery a little bit further away, and yeah, I'm gonna tell you guys more about them. We're now super close to the Danube Gorge, which is the narrowest and deepest part of the Danube. And we're going on a ship just later on, so I can take you through the mountain formation because it's super pretty. We tried to hike all the way to the monastery, but we took the wrong way. And we ended in front of a really big mountain wall, and yeah, we're not climbing that. So we are just waiting here for a tiny little bark that will set us over the rest of the way through the river. There's a lot of mosquitoes here. So yeah, and I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about the Danube. The different ways of how the name actually developed, like the ancient Nordic languages, danube could mean like big or great river. Since the Romans were here, there's obviously the river god Danubius, which might have been namesake to the Danube. Just a very historic kind of river, and every time I walk here it makes me kind of like feel like I'm in a movie, like an old movie about the Netherlands, or I don't know, Lord of the Rings. It's really, really nice. nice. And we also collected a lot of natural stones in the river, which you can find here. And I thought that I might find a couple of round and flat ones and make them into a set of rune stones. So I love to go to this kind of like little churches and monasteries. This one is from the 8th century. And if you look into the history of how these things came to be, we're actually next to a city that's called Kelheim, which if you trace that word back, it basically means home of the Celts. So we have a very rich history of that, and obviously they had different beliefs, pagan beliefs, and they would have their secret spaces, usually like in areas that had like a big significance in nature, like that look very magical almost. And this old monastery is basically built on one of those old spots in this lovely countryside just where the Danube gorge is. But if you just like stand there for a second and really feel the land, it's such a powerful and lovely feeling, and I can only recommend that to do that also in your own place. Like really follow back on the history and really feel it, like stand for a second still and connect with what is around you and with the beauty of nature. I mean, you can also super feel the tourism, and it's super annoying. That's why I came up here, because it was super crowded down there. I now have to go and find a child because I let him loose. And my friend gave up because every time I go on holidays with her and make her hike, and she doesn't appreciate it. She sits down there on a bench.